So you just spent $50,000 to get a brand new kitchen, but it lacks a dedicated space to put something simple like a loaf of bread so it doesn't get moldy. That's the problem with kitchen design today. It simply lacks some of the highly functional features that the kitchens of yesteryear came standard with. Today we're going to talk about 10 of the forgotten kitchen features of the past that we definitely should bring back to the kitchens of today. And the 2 kitchen features at the end are going to help you solve one of the biggest problems that homeowners face in these open concept homes today, so stick around for that. Let's get right into it with some of the built-in highly functional features of kitchens from the past that builders simply forget about when they're designing the kitchens of today. This first forgotten feature is something about your plate storage. A lot of us hide our plates in cabinets, or we put them on shelves like I have here, but there was a very common solution for plate storage that people used in the past. If you walk into a kitchen from the 1920s or even through the 1950s, you would often see something called a plate rack. And that is an open shelving unit that had vertical slots in it that you could put your plates in. They also had different plate racks that you could use to display decorative plates. And these weren't just utilitarian storage, they were architectural features built into the cabinetry itself. These plate racks really solved multiple problems at the same time. First, they provided extremely efficient storage. And those racks above the sink had that double duty where you just would wash the dish and you place it above the rack to drip dry. A lot of times today, the space above your kitchen sink is dead space. These beautiful dish racks would actually help you display these vintage plates. You were able to store them up on their side so everybody can see the beautiful design on them. That way you were displaying a little bit about your personality, your history, and telling your story. The key is to embrace the idea that functional items like your plates can be beautiful and display personality in your space. Oh, and if you're new around here, my name's Carrie. I'm a self-taught designer as well as founder of the blog Penny Modern. And if you want more kitchen design ideas and inspiration, hit subscribe because then YouTube will serve you more videos just like this. This next forgotten kitchen feature is something that is perfect if you are like me and you cannot stand having a dish drying rack out on your countertop for everybody to see to clutter up your kitchen. This was in the past something that they had a built-in feature to take care of. If we go back to kitchens from the 1920s to the 1950s, we had something that was really beautiful as well as utilitarian, and that is a drainboard sink. These were very large, heavy duty, made out of cast iron and coated in porcelain. My parents actually had one in my kitchen throughout my childhood. It was one solid piece that was basically the porcelain countertop, a drain board, as well as the sink itself. It was all one massive, heavy piece that really stood the test of time. And these sinks had a drain board that was built into the side, which were channels that would channel water and slope gently downward towards the sink. The beauty of these sinks were you could wash your dishes, set your dishes directly on the drain board, and the water would drip off and go back into the sink, no problem. Now, I had one of these in my house growing up. Let me know in the comments below if you guys had one of these big cast iron porcelain sinks in the house you grew up in, or maybe in your grandparents' house. Let me know down in the comments below. And here's the deal with these beautiful cast iron sinks. They were built to last. Some of these sinks are still in use today, 70, 80, 100 years later, and they barely have a scratch on them. They just don't build things like that anymore. Drainboard sinks are having a major moment right now, and it's not just nostalgia. One trend we're seeing is integrated sinks made of the same material as the countertop, and they are putting channels into the countertop just like my porcelain sink many years ago. You are seeing it being used today with these luxury high-end homes. They're putting those channels in, those beautiful quartz, quartzite, and marble sink. Oh, and speaking of kitchen renovations, if you are planning one, I've got a great, absolutely free resource for you. It's my kitchen budget worksheet. And this has pretty much anything that you might need to spend money on for your kitchen renovation, so you can help build your budget and figure out how much it's gonna cost, which I'm sure is a burning question in your mind. So download your copy today, absolutely free, at pennymodern.com/kitchen, and that link is down in the description. Now let's talk about storage, and specifically food storage. A lot of us have a pantry cabinet like I do here, and we store a lot of our food in this cabinet. But what about things like bread or your potatoes and onions, which need special storage conditions to keep them cool? For your bread, you need to make sure it's in a proper space so that it doesn't get moldy and it doesn't get stale. The problem with these pantry cabinets that we have, there's nothing really specially built inside this cabinet, but back in the day, especially in the 1920s through the 1950s, there were special areas and designated storage spaces for ingredients such as potatoes and bread. These range from iconic cabinets that we're going to talk about in a little bit, and also something very unique that I've seen come back a little bit today, and those are specialty drawers. These are specialty drawers that have special ventilation in them that are specifically designed to hold specific items such as potatoes, onions, and bread. There used to be bread drawers lined with tin, and they had little ventilation holes. The tin kept the pests out so you didn't get bugs in your bread. The ventilation helped keep the bread perfect so it didn't get too stale, and it also didn't get moldy. Then we had vegetable drawers, so that could store things like potatoes and onions. And these were deeper drawers, a lot of times with a slatted or mesh bottom, and they had perforated metal liners that allowed for air circulation. Some even had separate compartments. There was one tin-lined section for potatoes, which needed darkness to prevent greening, and a separate ventilated section for onions and garlic. So our parents and grandparents really knew how to store foods in order to have the maximum amount of shelf life to them and also peak quality. That's why they designed these special storage drawers to keep things fresher for longer. Leave a comment down below if you or a relative had a house that had these awesome vegetable storage drawers. I would love to know. And here is the great news. Luxury kitchens and custom kitchens incorporate some of these special vegetable drawers in the design. It's amazing that this is definitely making a comeback, that people are designing these drawers and they're having like a mesh on the bottom of it or holes in the front of it for ventilation, or maybe something tin lined, and a bread drawer or a bread box incorporated into their cabinet design. This next kitchen feature that is from the forgotten bygone era is something that wasn't actually inside your kitchen, but it was something that was built into the exterior wall. And this could help solve a very modern problem if we think about it in the right way. If you are like me and you order a lot of groceries online, you know they get delivered and sometimes get left at your door. Sometimes you have cool items that need to be cold or frozen, and those get left on your doorstep for an extended period of time, which is definitely not good. This is definitely a modern problem, and it has a solution that's actually been around since the 1890s. I am talking about a milk door. This was a small door or a compartment that had a door on the outside of your home and a door on the inside. The milkman would deliver your milk and butter. He'd open the door on the outside and put them in the little compartment and close it, and it would keep them cool. And then at a later time, you would open the door on the inside and put those in your kitchen. It was brilliant because you didn't have to be home to get your delivery. And some of these milk doors had a dial on them or some kind of communication that tells you what you wanted to have the milkman bring you for the following week. Milk doors were commonplace throughout American homes from the 1890s to the 1950s. And that's because daily or weekly deliveries of milk were just a part of normal daily life. These insulated little boxes had security features too. They could only be opened from the outside when the interior door was closed, and they could only be opened from the inside when the exterior door was closed. This was basically like an Amazon locker, decades, if not 100 years before Amazon even existed. We are starting to see a modern version of these milk doors come back in a big way. A modern company called Fresh Portal is bringing back these types of boxes with doors to install into your home to keep food cold, as well as to accept package deliveries, because we all have a lot of Amazon package deliveries that we're scared are going to get stolen, so it can be used for that as well. These updated insulated boxes contain modern conveniences such as smart controls and Wi-Fi apps, as well as smart locks to generate one-time codes delivery drivers can use. It's the same brilliant concept as a milk door, but with 21st century technology. But there's also another version of this, and it's being called the Costco door. We're seeing in some homes, especially if you have a garage attached to your home, and people are building these small little doors that they can just use to open when you pull your car in with your car full of all the stuff that you love to buy at Costco. You literally can just open your little Costco door and put in all your food products directly into your pantry. It saves you a bunch of time and from having to haul your groceries throughout the house. So if you're building or thinking about doing a major renovation, you might want to talk to your contractor or an architect about how you can incorporate some of these package delivery doors or a Costco door, and that way you can have this version of updated milk door. Now let's shift to something that's not just functional, but also very beautiful, and we're seeing these a lot in higher end. This next forgotten feature solves some of the issues around your range or stove. In most modern houses, it just sits flush with the rest of your cabinetry. If you have a lot of other stainless steel appliances like I do, it can just get lost in the shuffle. It doesn't really become a focal point to your kitchen anymore. If you go back in time to stoves in the early 19th or early 20th century, you see something that creates a focal point around the stove, and that would be a stove alcove. This is a recessed architectural feature built into the kitchen that is basically a niche or an alcove for your stove that your stove would sit in. And this was carved into the wall, specifically built to house your stove. This helped create a defined cooking zone. You had your cabinetry on the sides and an alcove where your stove sat. And historically, these stove alcoves served a specific purpose. When wood burning or early cast iron stoves became the norm, these alcoves helped protect the surrounding area from fire and heat damage. The walls of these alcoves were lined with fireproof materials such as tile, brick, or even metal. The second thing that these alcoves did is it actually created a focal point and created a visual as well as functional heart of your kitchen. The recessed design of these stoves actually had a ton of functional benefits. It helped retain heat, protected different things from grease and splatters, and it also often had built-in storage for things like spices or cooking utensils. And stove alcoves are actually coming back in a big way, and you're seeing them a lot in luxury custom kitchens. You can add additional lighting to these alcoves. You can add things like a pot filler to make it really fancy. You can add a small shelf or ledge for spice racks. Some people have hidden storage inside the alcove to hide some of those spices and utensils. This next forgotten kitchen feature is one that brought families together, much like we all gather around a kitchen island or peninsula today. Where does your family actually eat breakfast in the morning? Do you sit at your dining table? Do you eat it at your kitchen island or your peninsula? But what's interesting is back in the 1920s and the 1930s, a lot of kitchens were built with something in mind. They were built with built-in breakfast nooks. So picture a cozy corner with fixed built-in custom seating. This was often upholstered bench style seating that had a table as well as plenty of seats, maybe one or two or even three benches, and it was all built into the home. They were often built near a window to catch that morning light, which added to the experience. And this wasn't just a table and chairs. These were architectural features actually built into the home. And breakfast nooks really help maximize space because not all of us have a huge kitchen. What is great about these, they take up way less room than a dining table with chairs that have to be pulled out. You don't pull out the chairs on a breakfast nook because the chairs are built in. And a lot of these breakfast nooks had hidden storage inside those benches where you could put everything from kids' toys to seasonal items to those fancy serving trays that you only pull out once a year. Built-in breakfast nooks are making a comeback. I have seen many an HGTV show that says how they built in a breakfast nook into especially small spaces in terms of a kitchen. Modern versions can be even better than the originals. People are putting LED lighting underneath the seat. They're also doing soft close hinges when you pull up the cushions. Some have all kinds of outlets, including USB outlets, so people can charge their devices. Kids can do homework on their laptop, or you could use it as a workstation. Do you have a breakfast nook that's dedicated in your home, or did you have one in the home that you were growing up in? Let me know down in the comments. And this next one is something that every home absolutely needs. 100%, I am certain of this, but almost nobody has these anymore in their home. And I'm talking about something for things like your broom, or your dustpan, or your cleaning supplies, mop, or your Swiffer. Yes, I am talking about having a broom closet in your kitchen. They just don't make them anymore. It's crazy to me. So we spend so much money to renovate our kitchens. Like it can cost $25,000, $30,000, $50,000, $75,000. And then guess where you end up storing your cleaning supplies? Like I put mine literally right here, just on the side here, out of the way. And then when I film a video, I have to move it somewhere else because I don't have a broom closet. Now, houses built in the 1950s had this figured out. They had a purpose-built broom closet. I'm not talking about a coat closet that also you put your vacuum in. I'm not talking about having a pantry cabinet with like maybe a little space in it to put your dustpan. I'm talking about a purpose-built, specially made cabinet for your broom closet. The beauty of this broom closet wasn't just storage. It was also accessibility as well as organization for one of the rooms of your house that gets the most use and gets the dirtiest. In these little closets, everything had its place. Brooms and mops hung up on the door or on the side of the closet. Cleaning supplies had little shelves that you could easily see and access anytime you needed them. Nothing fell out when you opened the door. You could see everything you needed and you didn't have to run out to the garage every time you need to clean your kitchen, which is almost really every time you cook a meal. And today's modern homeowners are paying contractors thousands of dollars to build these fancy mudrooms at the entryway or a custom pantry with a designated broom closet, but you could really solve this just by having another cabinet or closet in your kitchen that is a dedicated broom closet. And you need to do that when you're designing your kitchen because it's really hard to do after the fact. Now, I did live in a home that had a 1970s kitchen, and what they did was they had two pantry cabinets, so like this, and the one had basically no shelves inside, and so you had a ton of vertical storage, and I used that as my broom closet. Next to it was the traditional pantry cabinet with lots of shelves inside. That's a great idea if you are designing your kitchen. Get two pantry cabinets and have one that doesn't really have any shelves inside, and you can use that as your broom closet. So broom closets weren't the only kitchen feature from yesteryear dedicated to a specific type of storage. There is something else used for baking and cooking activities that we definitely don't see anymore. Before beautiful kitchens and Pinterest-worthy pantries, there was something called the Hoosier cabinet. This was the original all-in-one kitchen workstation. And this was popular in the early 1900s throughout to the 1940s. And it was a freestanding piece of furniture about 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide that packed more functionality than most modern kitchens have in a 10 by 10 area. Here is what a Hoosier cabinet included. It had a built-in flour sifter with a crank handle, a sugar bin, a spice carousel, pull out work surfaces for rolling out dough, metal line bread drawers, which we talked about earlier, storage compartments for dry goods, recipe charts, or meal planning guides printed on the inside of cabinet doors. And some also had built-in hooks for things like utensils as well as towels. The Hoosier cabinet was a spectacular example of kitchen efficiency. And by 1920, the Hoosier Manufacturing Company had sold over 2 million of these Hoosier cabinets throughout the United States. They were middle-class essentials designed to make it easier for the homemaker or whoever was doing the meal prep. And they were built like tanks and built to last. Some of these Hoosier cabinets are still able to be used today at over 100 years old. In fact, these are highly collectible. If you see one in an antique shop, it could range in price from $500 to $2,000. Many people are restoring them and using them to create a baking station, or you can turn them into a coffee bar or whatever your heart desires. Even if you don't want to buy an antique for your kitchen, the concept of this freestanding piece of furniture that has a dedicated function is definitely coming back in a big way in terms of kitchen design. People are buying beautiful vintage look real wood cabinets and using them for a coffee station or wine bar or a baking station. And it's becoming a dedicated space in their home for something that they love. The beauty of this is that these type of freestanding cabinets are completely modular. You don't need to renovate your kitchen. If you have a little bit of wall space in your kitchen, you can add one of these freestanding cabinets, and it's a great way to add personality as well as usefulness to your kitchen space. Now we're back to food storage again, which I feel like there are some lacking things in today's modern kitchen when it comes to food storage. I have one pantry cabinet in my entire kitchen that has to store all of our food. You would think it would be enough for a family of 4 where somebody is gluten-free. It has a lot of things that I need to store in here. And if I open this, you'll see things and they're not neatly stacked. And it is really hard to keep everything organized when you have just one pantry cabinet. A lot of times it's hard to see the items in the back. A lot of times it's hard to clean things out and you just shove things in there whenever you get your grocery delivery. If we go back a generation or maybe a few generations, especially farmhouses and larger family homes, they had dedicated food pantry rooms. So I'm not talking about a single cabinet. I'm not talking about a closet. I am talking about a dedicated walk-in room where people stored their food. This was usually positioned between the kitchen and the back door or off the side of the kitchen, really for food storage. These rooms typically had lots of shelving. They might have even had a countertop that you could set your groceries on, and then you could put them away on the shelf. You also can see everything you own at a glance. You also could put in seasonal items or items like a mixer that you don't use that often. Luckily, walk-in pantries are definitely coming back, or maybe they never left luxury high-end homes, and people are loving to install these walk-in pantries to have tons of shelving, and then they can go to their trip to Costco, buy in bulk, and have a place to store all their bulk items. And then they're having a bread machine and storing that in there and having their countertop, doing some prep work in terms of things that they want to prep before they bring them out to the kitchen. So if you're renovating and have the space, you should consider a walk-in pantry. Some people are taking a portion of their garage, if they have an especially large garage, and the kitchen is next to that, and they're turning that into a pantry and having the access come from the pantry. You gotta check your building codes for something like that. Or they're using an old closet. I've seen some people convert a dining room into a walk-in pantry. And if you are short on pantry space like I am, you could consider getting one of those freestanding pantries to add to your pantry and food storage space. The point is that you need to have a dedicated zone instead of trying to tuck food away in different cabinets all over the place. Getting it all consolidated in one place is going to make things much more efficient and make your life a lot easier. Now let's talk about that next tip that I told you would be a solve for a lot of people's complaints about having an open concept home. So now picture this. You are hosting a dinner party in your open concept home. And your kitchen is the heart of the home, right? You are cooking up a meal, you've got pots and pans everywhere, you've got serving dishes, mixing bowl, all kinds of stuff, and a big mess in your kitchen that everybody in your living room and dining room can see. You're trying to cook as well as clean and entertain and be a great host. And it's honestly stressful. That is one of the biggest complaints about some of these open concept homes is that people have nowhere to hide some of that mess. So whenever they have people over, they have to hide everything all the time. And they're also getting stressed out when they're hosting these gatherings. So wouldn't it be great to have an area that's a staging area, a buffer, but it's something that you can get the cooking done and work done. And that is where we can bring back something from years past, and that is a butler's pantry. Butler's pantries were definitely areas that people used in bygone eras where it wasn't just for a butler per se, it was up to prep party platters for entertaining. You could prep appetizers. It was a behind the scenes area that different people used to prep the food, and that way they could take the food out when it was time to entertain. And then these areas were also cleanup zones, both butler's pantries as well as sculleries. It's somewhere where you could stack up the dishes after you have guests over, and then you can do your cleaning in a tucked away space that's not going to make your kitchen and entertaining area look messy and disorganized. These areas also served as storage areas where you could put items that you don't use on an everyday basis. That might be everything from a blender like I have here, or it could be something like an air fryer. They are amazing areas that you could have a lot of storage in. So you would have a lot of cabinetry all the way to the ceiling. And then definitely you're gonna have some countertops. A lot of butler's pantries and sculleries have a sink in them, so you can do that cleanup. Butler's pantries are definitely coming back in a big way, especially in luxury and larger homes. They are going to be those spaces that you actually do the cooking in. So that is the perfect solution to open concept homes. And nowadays, people are putting a variety of things in their butler's pantry. So you have your sink, you also can do a wine fridge, you might do a coffee bar or coffee station to make your coffees. You also definitely want to have a pantry food storage area. You can put a lot of different food on display in beautiful canisters, and you can have things like your baking station as well, and having things like a mixer and sifter, flour, sugar, and all the ingredients you might need for baking. Now, if you are thinking about putting in one of these into your kitchen when you're redesigning your space, bigger is definitely better, but you don't need a huge space. If you already have a walk-in pantry, you could add a sink. I have seen some people convert a dining room that was next to their kitchen into a dream butler's pantry where you have all kinds of storage for all your food. Repurposing some of that space to create a butler's pantry can be a great answer to some of these open concept space where you don't want all the mess on display all the time to everybody that comes to your house. Which one of these is your favorite kitchen features from long ago that you would love to have in your kitchen? I personally would love to have a butler's pantry. We definitely don't have the room to put them here because I do live in Southern California where house is a little bit smaller. But let me know down in the comments below which of these kitchen features you would love to have in your space. The other thing I wanted to ask was, what kind of kitchen features did you have in your house growing up, or maybe your grandparents had in their house growing up that I missed? I'd love to hear from you if there were any forgotten kitchen features that you think would be super useful in today's homes. Let us know down in the comments below. And if you are interested in getting even more kitchen design ideas and inspiration, then make sure you watch this next video right here, and I'll see you in that next video.